The stars above Earth suddenly vanished behind a wall of metal and light. 12,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, surrounding the planet in a sphere of impossible size. Each vessel stretched over 2 kilometers long, their hulls gleaming with alien alloys that reflected Earth's sun in strange, unsettling patterns. Admiral stood on the bridge of the United Defense Fleet headquarters, staring at the display screens that now showed nothing but red hostile markers. His weathered face remained calm, but his fingers gripped the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. 40 years of military service had prepared him for many scenarios. This was not one of them. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies," the communications officer said, her voice barely steady. "Audio and visual. It's broadcasting to every device on the planet." "Put it through," said. The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. It was vaguely humanoid but wrong in subtle ways. Its skin held a pale blue tint, eyes too large and positioned slightly too far apart. When it spoke, the translation came through crisp and clear, as if the aliens had been studying human languages for years. "Humans of Earth, I am High Commander of the Empire. Your planet is now surrounded by 12,000 warships of our fleet. You have 72 hours to accept annexation into our empire. Your governments will dissolve. Your military will stand down. Your species will serve. If you comply, your lives will continue under our governance. If you resist, your planet will be reduced to ash and your species will be removed from existence. These terms are not negotiable. You have 72 hours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge for 3 heartbeats. "Get me Ambassador Minyu Li," said quietly. "And somebody wake up every military commander on this planet. We're going to need everyone." Across the globe, panic erupted. News channels showed the alien ships in orbit, massive and ominous against the black of space. World leaders scrambled to convene emergency sessions. Religious leaders prayed. Scientists calculated the odds of survival and came up with numbers nobody wanted to hear. In Geneva, Ambassador Minyu Li sat in his office, already reviewing every piece of data Earth satellites had managed to gather about the alien fleet. He was a thin man with sharp eyes and a mind that moved faster than most could follow. He had negotiated peace treaties between warring nations, but this was different. This was survival. "They've done this before," said Commander, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, as she entered his office without knocking. She carried a tablet displaying streams of data. "We ran the ship configurations through our xenology databases. There are reports from other species, fragments of transmissions we've picked up over the years. They have conquered 47 other civilizations using exactly this method." "Show and intimidate," Minyu said, nodding slowly. "Arrive with overwhelming force. Give an ultimatum. Wait for surrender." "Every species surrendered within the time limit," continued. "Not one chose to fight. They haven't actually had to destroy a planet in over 200 years." Minyu leaned back in his chair. "Because nobody fights back when they see 12,000 warships." "Would you?" asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Admiral, Ambassador Li, I need to buy us time. I'm going to request a dialogue with their commander. Keep your people ready but quiet. If they think we're preparing something, they might strike early." On the other side of the world, Captain Park stood in the hangar bay of the experimental warship Indomitable. She was young for a captain, barely 35, but she had earned her position through raw skill and nerves of steel. Around her, maintenance crews worked frantically on the ship's systems, preparing for whatever came next. "Captain, you seeing this?" Lieutenant Song approached, his tablet showing tactical projections. "I've been running simulations. Even if every combat-capable ship humanity has joins the fight, we're looking at 800 vessels against 12,000. The math doesn't work." "Math never works in war," said, checking the plasma conduits on her ship's wing. "Wars are won by the side that wants it more, fights smarter and refuses to quit. Run the simulations again, but this time assume we're not fighting to match them ship for ship. Then what are we fighting for? To make them bleed for every inch of space around our planet, to make them remember Earth as the place where they learned fear. She looked up at her ship, sleek and deadly, built with experimental human technology that pushed every boundary. Now get me every pilot in the fleet who's crazy enough to fly into that and come back alive. As the first day passed, Ambassador Minu established communication with the fleet. High Commander appeared on screen, his expression one of mild irritation, as if dealing with a child who refused to go to bed. Ambassador Lee, the alien said, I assume you contact me to discuss terms of your surrender. I contact you to request clarification, Minu replied smoothly. Your ultimatum was quite clear, but Earth's governments require time to coordinate such a massive decision. Perhaps we could extend the deadline. His expression hardened. 72 hours, no extensions. We have conquered 47 species, Ambassador. All required less time to understand their situation. Do not test our patience. Of course not, Minu said, keeping his voice even. Might I ask for our historical records about your vessel's power systems? Such massive ships must require extraordinary energy generation. The alien commander seemed pleased by the question, as if Minu had finally asked something sensible. For the next 20 minutes, described the fleet's capabilities in broad terms, clearly intending to further intimidate. Minu listened carefully, asked technical questions that seemed like those of a defeated man trying to understand his conquerors. When the transmission ended, Commander smiled. Did you get all that? Every word, confirmed Doctor, the who had been recording and analyzing everything. He told us their shield frequencies, their weapon discharge cycles, and even their fleet communication protocols. He thinks we're already beaten. Maybe we are, said quietly. Or maybe, Doctor replied, pulling up data on her screens. He's never fought anyone who actually knows how to fight. Admiral gathered his commanders in a secure bunker beneath Geneva. General Shin, commander of ground-to-space defenses. Engineer Bay, who had designed weapons the United Nations officially claimed didn't exist. Captain Park, representing the fleet's experimental division. Dozens of others, the finest military minds Earth had produced. They think we'll surrender, said simply. We're not going to do that. We have 48 hours left. Let's show them why humanity survived this long. The countdown continued. Earth prepared for war. Doctor had not slept in 30 hours. Her office at the Research Institute had become a cave of displays and holographic projections, each showing fragments of data about the 47 civilizations that fell before the Empire. Coffee cups littered her desk, some still half full, others long forgotten. There, she whispered, highlighting a section of text recovered from deep space transmissions. And there, and there. Commander entered the office, looking equally exhausted. Please tell me you found something useful. We have less than 36 hours. Turned, her eyes bright despite the fatigue. They're bullies who never met anyone willing to punch back. Look at this. She gestured to a holographic display showing profiles of the conquered species. The peaceful traders who hadn't fought a war in 3,000 years. A species so passive they didn't even have a word for violence in their language. The herbivores who evolved without predators. So they pick easy targets, said. Not just easy. Impossible to lose against. Every single species the conquered had either never developed military technology or had abandoned it generations ago. They show up with 12,000 ships, and these peaceful civilizations just surrender immediately because fighting never occurs to them as an option. Stared at the data, understanding dawning, but humans are different. Humans are apex predators who spent 10,000 years fighting each other over every scrap of land, every resource, every ideology. We have thousands of military traditions. We study warfare like art. We write books about battles that happened centuries ago and still argue about the tactics. pulled up historical data from Earth. They have fought 47 wars of intimidation. Humanity has fought millions of wars of survival. Does Admiral know this? I sent it to him 20 minutes ago. He's already updating our strategy. Across the lunar surface, hidden beneath dust and manufactured craters, massive doors began to open for the first time in decades. General Shin watched from the command center as batteries rose into position, each weapon capable of hurling projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. These installations had been built in secret over 30 years, disguised as mining operations and research stations. "How long until we're fully operational?" asked his weapons officer. 6 hours for full power, but we can fire at 70% capacity right now if needed. Keep them hidden until Admiral gives the order. The element of surprise is all we have. Study the tactical display showing the fleet's perfect spherical formation around Earth. It looked impressive, intimidating even, but to his trained eye it was also rigid, predictable. They've never had to worry about actual military response. Look at that formation. Any first-year tactical student could exploit those gaps. Meanwhile, Ambassador Minyu continued his careful dance with High Commander. Their second communication session had just begun, and Minyu played his role perfectly, asking questions about the logistics of annexation, the legal processes, the timeline for transition of power. "You ask many questions," Ambassador said, his tone suggesting boredom. "Most species simply accept their fate with dignity." "Forgive me, Commander, we are a curious species. We like to understand things." Minyu smiled apologetically. "Your ships, for example, the way they maintain perfect position despite gravitational variations. Your maneuvering thrusters must be incredibly precise." Once again, fell into the trap of his own arrogance. He explained the propulsion systems, their thruster configurations, even their fuel consumption rates. To him, sharing this information with a defeated species was like a teacher explaining mathematics to a child. It would not matter once they surrendered. When the transmission ended, Lieutenant Song had filled 17 pages of notes. "He just told us their turning radius, their acceleration limits, and their blind spots," said, hardly believing it. "He's giving us everything we need to kill them." "Because he can't imagine we would try," Captain replied. She stood in the simulation room of the Indomitable, surrounded by holographic projections of the enemy fleet. "Run the combat scenario again. This time, use the propulsion data. I want to know exactly how fast they can react." The simulation began. 50 experimental human fighters, small and fast, weaving through the formation. The alien ships tried to track them, but their targeting systems were designed for fighting other large vessels. The human craft moved too quickly, too unpredictably. In the simulation, 20 human ships were destroyed, but they took down 63 vessels in exchange. "Those odds are better," said. "Much better, but we need more. What else do we have?" Engineer Bay entered the room, carrying a secure tablet. "I've been working on something. They use energy shields that deflect energy weapons and explosive projectiles, but shields are designed based on what a species expects to face. They have never fought anyone who uses kinetic weapons." "Kinetic weapons are ancient technology," said. "Exactly. So ancient that they don't bother shielding against them properly. A solid slug moving at high velocity will pass right through their shields because their defensive systems won't recognize it as a threat until it's too late." Activated a projection. "I've retrofitted every defense satellite in Earth's orbit. They were supposed to deflect asteroids. Now they'll fire tungsten rods at ships." Grinned. "How many satellites?" 14,000, each with 12 rounds. That's 168,000 shots. Even if we only hit with 10%, that's 16,000 kills. If the simulation is correct, yes. Back at the Xenology Institute, Doctor made another discovery. She had been analyzing the communication with Earth, studying not just the words but the transmission itself. Commander, look at this. Their entire fleet is networked through a central communication hub. It's efficient, but it means if we can disrupt that hub, we can blind entire sections of their fleet. Leaned closer. Can we hack it? Maybe, but we'd need access to their systems first. We'd need to get someone aboard one of their ships. That's impossible. They're not allowing anyone close. A voice spoke from the doorway. Not impossible, difficult. Colonel Han entered, dressed in the black uniform of Special Forces. She was compact, muscular, and had a reputation for accomplishing missions others called suicide. If a ship gets damaged in combat, if it starts to drift, my team can board it. We've trained for zero-gravity combat. We can breach their hull, access their systems, and upload whatever virus Doctor creates. You're talking about boarding an enemy warship in the middle of a battle, said. Yes, I am. That's insane. Probably, but this whole situation is insane. At least my plan might work. As the second day ended and only 24 hours remained, High Commander grew impatient. The humans had not surrendered. They had not even shown signs of preparing for surrender. Instead, this Ambassador Minu kept asking questions, kept requesting meetings, kept delaying. Enough, told his officers. We will demonstrate our power. There is an uninhabited moon in this system. We will destroy it. Then the humans will understand. The fleet fired. A massive energy beam, powered by a dozen ships working in concert, struck the small moon orbiting Neptune. For 3 seconds the beam continued. When it stopped, the moon was gone. Only fragments remained, spinning slowly into the dark. The transmission went out to Earth. This is your final warning. 24 hours remain. Submit or share that moon's fate. On Earth, the response was not fear. Admiral watched the footage of the destroyed moon, studying every frame. Freeze there. Enhance that section. I want to see the beam's dispersion pattern. The image zoomed in, smiled for the first time in 2 days. The beam loses cohesion at the edges. It's powerful, but it takes time to charge, and it requires multiple ships to generate, which means those ships are locked in position and vulnerable while they're firing. He turned to his assembled commanders. They just showed us their greatest weapon, and they showed us how to beat it. Are we really doing this? General asked. Are we really going to fight 12,000 warships? Looked around the room at the faces of humanity's defenders. Captain, ready to fly into hell itself. Colonel, prepared to board enemy ships. Engineer, armed with weapons that shouldn't exist. Doctor, who had found every weakness in the enemy's armor. Commander, who had turned enemy arrogance into intelligence gold. Yes, said simply, we're going to fight because that's what humans do, we fight. The countdown reached 0 at exactly midnight Greenwich Mean Time. High Commander sat in his command chair, confident and relaxed. In 47 previous conquests, the deadline had never been reached. Every species surrendered with hours to spare, sometimes days. Humans had pushed it to the very last second, but surely now they would broadcast their acceptance. Instead, Admiral's face appeared on every screen in the fleet. High Commander said, his voice calm and clear. I am Admiral, Commander of Earth's United Defense Fleet. I am broadcasting to inform you of our decision. We reject your ultimatum. We reject your empire. We reject your presence in our system. You have 1 hour to begin withdrawal. If you do not comply, we will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly. Stared at the screen in disbelief. Then he laughed. His officers joined him, their mirth echoing through the command deck. When the laughter died, activated his own transmission. Admiral, your bravery is admirable but foolish. You have 800 ships. We have 12,000. You understand mathematics, yes. 1 hour. No. You have 1 minute to reconsider before we begin bombardment. After that, your planet's surface will burn, and humanity will exist only in our historical records as the species too stupid to accept mercy. The transmission ended, gave the order. All ships, target population centers, Prepare to fire on my command. We will eliminate 30% of their species in the first wave. The survivors will surrender before the second wave is necessary." 60 seconds passed. No surrender came. Fire commanded. The fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy weapons blazed toward Earth, enough firepower to shatter continents. The beams cut through space, unstoppable and devastating. Then Earth's true defenses activated. Across the planet's surface, what had appeared to be ordinary buildings, industrial complexes, and power stations suddenly transformed. Massive shield generators rose into position, creating an energy barrier that wrapped around the entire planet. The weapons struck the shield and dispersed harmlessly, their power bleeding into empty space. "Impossible," whispered. "They shouldn't have shield technology." "We don't," Admiral's voice came through the communication channel, which Earth had not closed. "We had to invent it after detecting your fleet. Took us 70 hours. Human engineers work fast when properly motivated." Before could respond, the second surprise hit. The moon's surface exploded into motion. Dozens of hidden doors opened and batteries rose into firing position. General Shin gave the command from his lunar base. "All batteries fire at will. Target their capital ships first." Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons and accelerated to incredible velocities, screamed through space. The shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles. The rods punched through shields and hulls like they were paper. In the first 30 seconds, 47 ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic impacts. "Evasive maneuvers," shouted. "Return fire on that moon." But the formation, so perfect and intimidating, was also rigid. The ships were positioned too close together, designed for show rather than combat flexibility. As they tried to maneuver, they collided with each other, creating chaos in their ranks. Captain Park launched from Earth's atmosphere in the Indomitable, followed by 49 other experimental fighters. These ships were small, fast, and covered in stealth coating that made them nearly invisible to sensors. They flew in patterns that seemed random but were carefully choreographed, weaving through the enemy formation like needles through cloth. "All fighters engage at will," commanded. "Remember your training. Fast, unpredictable, and mean. Show them what human pilots can do." Lieutenant Song flew beside her, his targeting computer lighting up with enemy ships. He fired missiles, not powerful enough to destroy a warship but smart enough to find weak points. Engine ports, sensor arrays, communication nodes. Each hit degraded the enemy's capabilities. The ships tried to track the human fighters, but their targeting systems couldn't lock on. The human craft moved too erratically, changing direction in ways that seemed to violate physics. What they didn't know was that human pilots could handle higher G-forces than any other species they'd encountered. What would kill another species just made a human pilot grunt and keep flying. "Target-rich environment," said with grim satisfaction. "Too many enemies to miss. Break formation and go hunting." Engineer Bay watched from Earth's Orbital Defense Command as her satellites deployed. 14,000 weapons platforms, each loaded with kinetic kill vehicles. She had spent 3 years building these in secret, disguised as commercial satellites and space junk. Now they revealed their true nature. "Fire solution computed," her weapons officer reported. "Targeting 2,000 enemy vessels, weapons free." "Fire everything," ordered. The sky around Earth lit up as thousands of projectiles launched. The still reeling from the moon's assault and the fighter attack suddenly found themselves under bombardment from every direction. Ships that had been firing at Earth's shields were hit from behind. Ships trying to pursue human fighters were struck from above and below. The perfect sphere of the formation collapsed into chaos. Gripped his command chair, watching his tactical display fill with red markers indicating destroyed ships. In 10 minutes of combat, he had lost over 300 vessels, 300 ships, against a species that was supposed to be primitive and helpless. How, he demanded, how are they doing this? His tactical officer was pale. Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're using the debris from destroyed ships as cover. They're firing from unexpected angles. They're coordinating attacks across multiple platforms simultaneously. It's like they've been preparing for this battle their entire existence. We outnumber them 15-1. That may not matter, sir. Their tactics, their weapons, their strategies, everything about how they fight is beyond our combat doctrine. We don't have responses for this. Colonel Han waited in her assault ship, watching the battle unfold. She had 50 Special Forces operators with her, all veterans of Earth's various conflicts, all trained for combat in environments humans had no business fighting in. There, her pilot said, highlighting a destroyer that had taken multiple hits. It was spinning slowly, atmosphere venting from several hull breaches, obviously crippled. That's our target. Take us in, commanded. Boarding team, prepare for breach. The assault ship accelerated toward the damaged vessel. Point defense lasers fired at them, but human stealth technology and random maneuvering made them impossible to hit accurately. The ship clamped onto the hull and began cutting through. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The hull gave way. Was first through, her combat suit protecting her from vacuum. The interior of the alien ship was dark, emergency lighting casting strange shadows. Her team moved in precise formation, clearing corridors, securing positions. Contact, someone shouted. Crew members appeared, armed with energy weapons. They fired. Teams scattered and returned fire with conventional bullets. The aliens fell, their biology not so different from humans that a bullet to the chest wasn't fatal. Keep moving, ordered. We need to reach their computer core. They fought through 3 decks of the ship, facing disorganized resistance. The crew had never trained for boarding actions. Why would they? Nobody had ever dared to board their ships before. His team, trained by hundreds of years of human special operations experience, moved through them like professionals through amateurs. They reached the computer core. Dr.'s virus was loaded into a portable device, connected it to the systems. Uploading now, she reported. Estimated time 90 seconds. Those 90 seconds felt like hours as her team held the position against counterattacking crew. But the upload completed. The virus spread through the ship's systems, then jumped to the fleet's communication network. Across the formation, ships began losing connection with each other. Their coordinated targeting systems failed. Their tactical network collapsed. Suddenly, 12,000 ships were no longer a unified fleet but 12,000 individual vessels, confused and isolated. Admiral watched it all from his command center, seeing his plan unfold exactly as hoped. Not perfectly. Human casualties were mounting, ships were being destroyed, people were dying. War was never clean, but it was working. Earth was fighting back, and more importantly, Earth was winning. All forces press the advantage, commanded. Show them what happens when they threaten our home. High Commander finally understood the truth. His empire had grown fat on easy conquests. They had never learned to truly fight because they'd never needed to. But humans, these violent, creative, stubborn humans, had spent their entire history fighting. Every war, every battle, every conflict in human history had been preparation for this moment. He had brought 12,000 warships to intimidate a species that couldn't be intimidated. He had threatened a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear weapons. He had picked a fight with apex predators who smiled when the odds were against them. Communications, said quietly, his pride shattered. Open a channel to Admiral, request negotiations. The battle raged for 18 hours without pause. Captain Park pulled her fighter through another impossible maneuver, feeling the G-forces compress her chest even through her pressure suit. Her display showed 3 enemy ships trying to bracket her position. She grinned despite the pain and activated her thrusters in a pattern called the Serpent's Dance, a move human pilots had developed specifically for this battle. The Indomitable twisted through space in 3 dimensions simultaneously, laying down a trail of proximity mines as it moved. The pursuing ships, flying in standard formation, flew straight into the minefield. 2 exploded immediately. The third managed to raise shields, but Lieutenant Song had been waiting for exactly that moment. His missile struck the shield generator directly, and the ship became a sitting target for Earth's orbital defenses. "To all fighters," she broadcast, "they're learning our tricks. Switch to pattern gamma and stay unpredictable. Don't let them track your movements." Around Earth's orbit, 43 remaining human fighters continued their deadly dance. They had started with 50 ships. 7 were gone, their pilots memorialized in the data streams that would be reviewed later, assuming there was a later. But those 7 pilots had taken 31 enemy vessels with them. The mathematics of war were brutal but clear. On the lunar surface, General Shin coordinated the batteries with cold precision. Each shot required careful calculation. Tungsten rods traveling at relativistic speeds couldn't be guided once launched. You aimed, you fired, and 3 seconds later you found out if you'd calculated correctly. "Battery 7, target the cluster at coordinates Alpha 97, commanded. "Battery 12, wait for them to dodge, then fire at their projected position." It was like chess played with weapons that could shatter mountains. They were learning to evade the fire, but every evasion forced them to break formation, to expose their flanks, to move into positions where other human weapons could target them. Was hurting them like animals, driving them into kill zones they didn't even recognize until too late. "Sir, we're at 40% ammunition," his weapons officer reported. "If this continues, we'll be dry in another 6 hours. "Then we make every shot count," replied. "Target only capital ships. Let the fighters and satellites handle the smaller vessels." Doctor worked in a laboratory deep beneath Geneva, her hands moving across controls that operated machinery most humans didn't know existed. She was a physicist who had spent 20 years working on theoretical weapons that were never supposed to be built. When the fleet arrived, those theories became very practical very quickly. "Quantum disruptor is charging," she reported to Admiral. "Estimated time to full power, 30 minutes. But Admiral, I need to stress that we've never tested this. The simulations say it will disrupt their communication network across a radius of 1 million kilometers. But simulations also said the device might create a localized quantum vacuum that could tear a hole in space-time." "What are the odds of the space-time hole?" asked. 5%. "And if we don't use the disruptor?" Looked at the tactical displays showing the ongoing battle. Earth falls with 95% certainty. "Then the choice is easy," said. "Charge the weapon. Sometimes you have to risk everything to protect everything." High Commander had moved his command ship to the rear of his formation, a position that would have been considered cowardice in human military tradition, but was simply prudent by standards. From this vantage point, he watched his fleet slowly being torn apart by an enemy that shouldn't have been able to resist for 5 minutes. "Status report," he demanded. His tactical officer's voice was hollow. "We've lost 1,400 ships. Enemy losses are approximately 270 vessels and platforms. Our kill ratio is favorable, but we're losing faster than acceptable parameters." "How is this possible? We have superior numbers, superior firepower, superior ships." "Sir, I've been analyzing their combat patterns. They're not trying to win through superior force. They're trying to win through superior violence. Every tactic they use is designed to inflict maximum damage regardless of cost. They fight like they have nothing to lose." "They have their planet to lose." "Yes, sir. And they're willing to lose it rather than surrender. That's not a rational position. Every species we've encountered understood that survival was more important than pride. Humans seem to believe pride is survival. A proximity alarm sounded. Looked at his displays and saw a human assault ship approaching a damaged cruiser. Are they attempting another boarding action? Yes, sir. That's the fourth one. The previous 3 teams successfully infiltrated our vessels and uploaded viral software into our systems. Destroy that assault ship immediately. We're trying, sir. Their stealth technology and maneuvering capabilities make them extremely difficult targets. Watched helplessly as the small human vessel latched onto the cruiser. He knew what would happen next. Armed humans would cut their way inside. They would fight through his crew with brutal efficiency. They would reach the computer core and compromise another ship's systems. Colonel Hen led her second boarding action of the battle, her combat suit from previous engagements. Her team had perfected their technique. Fast entry, overwhelming firepower, secure the objective, extract before the enemy could organize a proper response. We're inside, she reported, meeting light resistance. These crews aren't trained for close combat. It was almost unfair. Soldiers were excellent at operating weapons systems and managing ship functions, but they had never learned to fight in corridors, to clear rooms, to engage in the brutal close-quarters combat that humans had been practicing since they lived in caves. His team moved through the ship like water through cracks, unstoppable and thorough. Core accessed, uploading package 3. This virus was different from the others. Doctor had designed it specifically to spread doubt. It would broadcast false orders, create phantom targets on sensors, and generally make the crews question everything their instruments told them. In war, confusion was often more effective than destruction. Back on Earth, Engineer Bay faced a crisis. Admiral, satellite ammunition is down to 15%. The orbital defense network is nearly exhausted. Switch to defensive posture, ordered. Protect the shield generators and the moon batteries. We need to hold until the quantum disruptor is ready. Sir, our casualties are mounting. We've lost over 300 pilots and crew. The Indomitable reports engine damage. The lunar batteries are overheating. Closed his eyes for 1 second, allowing himself to feel the weight of every lost life. Then he opened them again because war didn't pause for grief. I know. Tell all units to hold position. We're not retreating. We're not surrendering. We're winning even if it doesn't feel like it. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain fought to keep her ship in the battle despite warnings flashing across every display. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Shield generators at 20%. Port engine offline. Weapon systems degraded. Her ship was dying around her, but it was still flying, still fighting. Target the command ship, she told. The one hanging back, that's their leader. We'll never make it through their defensive screen. And even if we do, we don't have enough firepower left to crack that ship. We don't need to crack it. We just need to scare it. Show them that nowhere is safe, that we can reach them anywhere. She pushed the throttle forward, sending her damaged ship on a direct course towards position. Alarm sounded in the command ship. Sir, enemy fighter approaching on attack vector. It's damaged but still incoming. Shoot it down, ordered. Energy weapons fired. Dodged most of them, her ship's wounded frame protesting every maneuver. One beam clipped her starboard wing, tearing it completely off. The Indomitable spun wildly but corrected with thrusters, still accelerating toward the command ship. Watched the human fighter approach, impossible to stop, piloted by someone who clearly didn't care if they died as long as they completed their attack. It was madness. It was terrifying. It was completely, utterly human. At the last moment, released her remaining missiles and pulled up, the G-forces nearly knocking her unconscious. The missiles struck the command ship's shields, which held, but the impact sent shockwaves through the vessel. No real damage, but every officer on that bridge had just learned that humans could reach them. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, we need to withdraw. These humans are going to fight until every last one of them is dead. We've never encountered a species with this level of military fanaticism. We still outnumber them, said, but his voice lacked conviction. For now, but at current loss ratios, we'll be below parity in another 12 hours. And that's assuming they don't have more weapons we haven't seen yet. As if summoned by those words, Doctor's voice came through on the priority channel. Admiral, the quantum disruptor is ready. Fire it, said without hesitation. Beneath Geneva, machinery that bent the rules of physics activated. Space itself twisted. Every ship within 1 million kilometers suddenly lost all electronic communication simultaneously. Their networked systems collapsed. Their coordination disappeared. Each ship was alone. And alone, outnumbered but no longer outmatched by coordination, the human forces pressed their advantage with ruthless efficiency. The battle had lasted 23 hours when High Commander finally accepted the truth that his empire had never taught him. Numbers alone do not win wars. The fleet had been reduced to 6,200 functional ships. Some were heavily damaged, others had lost communication with the rest of the fleet, and many were simply trying to survive rather than fight. Earth's forces had paid a terrible price. 412 ships and platforms destroyed. Over 7,000 military personnel dead. Captain Park floated in her damaged cockpit, barely conscious, as rescue teams worked to extract her from the wreckage of the Indomitable. Lieutenant Song had managed to bring her ship close enough for recovery before she passed out from blood loss and oxygen deprivation. "Hold on, Captain," the rescue team leader said over the communication line. "We're cutting through now. You did it. You actually scared their command ship." Tried to laugh but coughed instead. "Scared, I wanted to ram it, ran out of ship before I could." On the lunar surface, General Shin surveyed the batteries. Half were offline, overheated from continuous firing. The others were down to their last few rounds, but they had held. The moon remained in human hands, its weapons having claimed over 300 enemy ships. "General," his communication officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the command ship. They're requesting negotiations." Smiled grimly. "Tell them to talk to Admiral. I just shoot things. He's the one who decides if we stop shooting." Admiral sat in his command chair, looking older than he had 24 hours ago. Every casualty report felt like a weight added to his shoulders, but he had kept his planet safe. Humanity had survived. Now came the hardest part of any war, ending it. Ambassador Minyu Lee called, "You're up, time to finish this." Minyu entered the communication room, adjusting his suit. He looked as exhausted as everyone else, but his mind was sharp. He had spent 23 hours watching humans fight and die, and that experience had changed something in him. He activated the communication channel to the command ship. High Commander appeared on screen. The alien looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been shock or possibly fear. He had commanded fleets that conquered 47 civilizations without ever personally being in danger. Now his command ship had been directly attacked by a single damaged fighter that had no reasonable chance of success, but tried anyway. "Ambassador Lee," said, his voice careful, "I wish to discuss terms of ceasefire." "I'm listening," Minyu replied, keeping his tone neutral. "We acknowledge that this conflict has been more costly than anticipated. Both sides have suffered losses. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation. We could reduce our initial demands, partial annexation, a treaty of cooperation, trade agreements favorable to Earth." "No," Minyu said simply. Blinked no. "You came to our home and threatened to murder our entire species. You fired on our planet. You killed thousands of our people. And now you want to negotiate as if this was a business dispute." Minyu leaned forward. "Here are Earth's terms. You will withdraw every ship from our system immediately. You will broadcast a message to every member species of your empire informing them that humanity is not to be contacted, threatened, or attacked. You will leave us alone forever. And in exchange, In exchange, we don't pursue your fleet and destroy every last ship. We've been holding back, Commander. This battle has been a defensive action. Do you want to see what happens when humans go on offense? Was quiet for a long moment. You were holding back. Doctor's voice came through on a shared channel arranged beforehand. Commander, the quantum disruptor you just experienced. That was our first time using it. We have 3 more larger already charging. We also have weapons we didn't deploy because we wanted to see if conventional forces would be sufficient. Nuclear weapons, antimatter warheads, kinetic bombardment systems that can crack planets. We have spent 10,000 years inventing ways to kill each other. We're very good at it. It was a bluff, mostly. Some of those weapons existed, but not in the quantities suggested. But didn't know that, and after watching humans fight for an entire day, he had no reason to doubt they had even more terrible weapons in reserve. Colonel Han, back aboard her assault ship and monitoring the negotiation, allowed herself a small smile. The threat of violence was often more effective than violence itself. A lesson humanity had learned from thousands of years of warfare and diplomacy. "We accept your terms," said finally. "We will withdraw. We will broadcast the message. But I must understand something. We conquered 47 civilizations. All of them surrendered. Why did you fight? Why were you willing to die rather than accept a few decades of transition to our governance?" Ambassador Minu looked directly into the camera, his expression serious. "Because you asked us to submit. Humans don't submit, Commander. We adapt. We overcome. We endure, but we don't submit. Not to you, not to anyone." Admiral spoke from his position, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "You made a fundamental mistake, Commander. You studied our technology and found us inferior. You looked at our divided governments and found us weak. But you never studied our history. If you had, you would have learned that humans have been fighting wars since before we had written language. Every military tradition you can imagine, we developed independently on different continents. Infantry tactics, naval warfare, air combat, space operations. We've been preparing for war our entire existence. The 47 species you conquered had evolved past warfare," Doctor added, her voice coming through the channel. "They were peaceful, enlightened, civilized. We're working on those things, but we're not there yet. Right now, we're still apex predators who learn to use tools and build spaceships. You picked a fight with the wrong species at the wrong time." Engineer Bay contributed her perspective. "Every weapon we used against you, we invented to use against each other. The shields, the kinetic weapons, the cyber warfare, the boarding tactics, all of it comes from thousands of years of humans fighting humans. You were just the first aliens to experience what we've been doing to ourselves forever." Absorbed this information, and something like understanding appeared in his expression. "You're warriors, not soldiers but warriors, your entire species." "We prefer to think of ourselves as survivors," Minu said. "But yes, when threatened we fight. It's in our nature. Maybe someday we'll evolve past it like your other conquests did, but today is not that day." The commander nodded slowly. "We will withdraw, we will send the message, and we will ensure that the Empire never returns to this system. You have my word." "Make sure you keep it," Admiral said. "Because if we see your ships near Earth again, we won't wait for you to make demands. We'll just start shooting. And next time, we won't be defensive. We'll bring the war to your home worlds. We'll show you what total war means to a species that's been practicing it for 10,000 years." It was a threat, but it was also a promise, and believed every word. The communication ended. For several seconds, the command center was silent. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Not celebration exactly, but acknowledgement. They had survived. Earth had survived. Captain Park was recovered from her wrecked fighter, unconscious but alive. Lieutenant Song was already planning the memorial service for the pilots they had lost. General Shin was coordinating the shutdown of the lunar batteries, making sure they cooled properly. Colonel Han was debriefing her teams, learning from what worked and what didn't for future reference. Over the next 6 hours, the fleet, 12,000 ships had arrived. 6,200 limped away. The rest floated in space around Earth, monuments to the cost of underestimating humanity. Ambassador Minu stood at the window of his Geneva office, looking up at the stars. Commander joined him, two people who had spent the last several days ensuring humanity's survival through intelligence and negotiation rather than direct combat. "Do you think they'll come back?" asked. "No," Minu said. "Is a survivor. He'll make sure his empire knows what happened here. They'll paint us as dangerous savages, which is partly true. They'll warn others to stay away." "And if they don't stay away?" Minu smiled without humor. "Then we'll remind them. Humans are good at reminding people why we're dangerous." Admiral addressed the planet from the command center. His face broadcast to billions of humans who had spent the last day wondering if they would survive to see another sunrise. "People of Earth," he said, "we won. We fought an empire that had conquered 47 worlds and we sent them running. But this victory came at a cost. Over 7,000 military personnel gave their lives defending our planet. Hundreds of ships were destroyed. We paid in blood for our freedom, and we must never forget that price." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "Today we learned something about ourselves. We learned that when pushed to the edge, humanity doesn't break. We learned that all our conflicts, all our wars, all our violence throughout history prepared us for this moment. We're not proud of being warriors, but we're grateful for the strength it gave us when we needed it most. The galaxy now knows we exist. They know we're dangerous. They know we're willing to fight for our home. What happens next is up to them. If they leave us in peace, we'll continue developing, learning, growing. If they don't, well, we've proven we can defend ourselves." He looked directly at the camera. "To any other species listening to this broadcast, understand this. Humans don't want war. We want peace. We want to explore the stars, to learn, to grow. But if you threaten our home, if you demand our submission, if you come with weapons and ultimatums, we will fight. And we are very, very good at fighting." The transmission ended. Earth began the long process of recovery, of mourning the dead and healing the wounded. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and the universe now knew that Earth's inhabitants were not to be trifled with. Captain woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. Lieutenant was sitting beside her, reading casualty reports. "Did we win?" she asked, her voice rough. Smiled. "We won. The left Earth is safe." "Good," said. She closed her eyes, ready to rest, then opened them again. "How many did we lose?" "Too many," said quietly, "but fewer than we would have lost if we'd surrendered." Nodded. That was the truth of it. Humanity had fought because surrender meant the end of everything they were. Fighting meant they had a chance, and humans always chose the chance to fight over the certainty of submission. Outside, the stars shone peacefully, full of species that would now think twice before threatening a planet called Earth.